Sure. A lot of communications coming together. We did a lot of for December. Yeah. Okay. There's a lot of things that we can apply for and actually design. And that's oh yeah, I'm downtown. I was watching on Caesar Chinese.
You actually are you working on a capital factory?
Yeah.
Austin,
Yeah,
on the
that's-
floor? Or up here?
Over here.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really it's nice. Good energy beats working out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah. I end up either at home, Collins choose a good bit, or I come in here for some real work.
You know Brandon Clark at Microsoft? I know it's a huge list. You know Brandon?
Wait. Actually, just there used to be a guy named Brandon Satcher, and there's not a guy named Clark, but they actually just did their own thing, so I just put their names together.
Yeah.
What is he?
Brandon? He is a Azure. He's kind of our well, he used to be a services guy, and he's since moved over to the sales side. He's on the
Okay. Is he in Texas?
He was. And
Probably
then
in Dallas, probably in Las Colinas.
Yep, Las Colinas, and he relocated to support the Walmart account.
Gotcha.
Let me get his actual. It's very interesting. Yeah, I was before I did this. I was they're working on our public cloud integration team. So then we signed a deal about 2 years ago for $25 million pre-commit on Azure resources and sales. It was a lot of working, like Fort Sanders, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was fun, man. I miss those guys. The Microsoft team especially. They're good dudes for sure.
Yeah, Las Colinas office is big. Unfortunately, it's folks out of it just because it's like a 2,000 seat office.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Brandon, cloud solution architect.
Jason, Paul, you want to join me?
Sure.
All right, welcome everybody. I'm sure we'll still have some folks kind of trickle in. I know it's always a full house for any of these kind of intro to corporate startup programs. But first of all, Happy New Year. Happy 2017. Show of hands, who's been to one of these sort of intro to corporate startup programs? Either we've done GovTech, cybersecurity, cloud, AR, VR, health. Anyone? Okay, so just a couple people. So, who has been to one of Josh's kind of Ask Me Anythings around intro to the Austin tech scene, intro to Austin accelerators, angel investing, all of those kind of awesome. So this kind of series is very much designed in that same vein. In fact, whenever Josh had started that series, I was like, hey, this is awesome. We should also, I said, you actually should also, start a series that focuses on some of the larger companies that have kind of entrepreneurial support organizations or some sort of corporate outreach programs, specifically to help founders and startups. So folks like Microsoft and Walmart and Amazon and Dell and IBM, like there's a lot of larger corporate programs that have these things. And Josh was like, that's awesome, you should definitely do that. I'm like, crap, now I have more work. But Capital Factory's been awesome, and also they came up with the name Working with Giants versus my very boring corporate startup programs. So thank you to actually Desmond, who came up with that name. Today we're focused on retail and retail tech. So on our panel today, we've got Jason Norris with Walmart, and we've got Paul Underwood with Amazon and Amazon Web Services. And my name is Ryan Joy, and I'm a startup evangelist at Microsoft. So to start, what I like to do is get our panelists to kind of introduce yourselves, what you do at your obviously respective companies, and then I want you to answer the why Austin question. Specifically, why is Walmart emerging innovation? Why is Amazon interested? Why Austin? Why these entrepreneurs in this room? Does everyone want to kick that off, Jason?
Sure. Yeah. So Jason Norris, I do business development for Walmart Emerging Technologies, and so really, what that means is, so I'm embedded here in Austin, and really the only corporate individual. So it's a very specialized role, and the whole idea is just to get plugged into the startup ecosystem, right, and look for innovation outside of the corporate walls. We know that the majority of innovation these days comes from startups and entrepreneurs. So that's why I'm here. I actually have a desk here at Capital Factory, so if you're around much, pretty easy to get a hold of. And why Austin? So I think a couple of reasons. Some of my leadership actually, kind of went on a big tour talking to different incubators and startup accelerators, and landed here, met Josh, and any of you that know Josh have met Josh. He's pretty fun guy, pretty charismatic. There was just a real, I think, good strong relationship there. So we thought, Capital Factory would be an excellent partner to help us with this. It's something we're relatively new to doing this. Now, I mean, you'll see like Walmart Labs and M&A activity, but purely working with the startup community for innovation purposes is a relatively new discipline for us. So we needed a good partner, and I think obviously there's a lot going on in Austin. The partnership with Capital Factory and Josh, and then I also wanted to move back here. So
Okay. I like it. Yeah.
Good
It's a
choice.
good excuse to get back here.
Yep.
Hi guys, Paul Underwood. I'm a startup solutions architect for AWS, so that means my role is I kind of work with accelerators and VCs around the country, especially in sort of the central area, and sort of talk with companies that they're investing in and help them build on top of AWS, making sure they're scalable and secure and reliable and all that sort of thing. So if you have deep technical questions about how to build on top of AWS or AWS services, I'm the guy to come talk to here locally. I also sort of broader, because of our sort of exposure to startups at early stages, we have a counterpart of mine here in Austin named Ryan Merkett, who is the business development manager for startups in Austin. And he is the man to connect you with Amazon.com more broadly. So if there are programs, and I'm sure we'll talk about them later, but if there are programs or specific parts of Amazon that you're interested in getting to know, the Amazon Go or Alexa or Prime Now, we're a conduit to get you guys in touch with those different business units at Amazon. As far as why Austin, I can really talk more about AWS here and why we've invested in Austin. I was actually the first solution architect in the startup role at AWS, and I started here in Austin. So from the start, AWS was invested in putting people and, little fingers on keyboards here in Austin. And I think that's in large part because of the community here around around Capital Factory and Techstars and the quality of especially accelerator level investments that are happening. That's generally what we rely on to kind of point us in the right direction for who we should be spending our time talking to. So I think AWS is selfish reasons for why Austin. That's it. I was born and bred here in Austin, so I'm a native son, and I did the East Coast thing for 6-7 years, and I'm glad to be home. So yeah,
Cool. So, very similarly, I'm essentially the counterpart to Paul at Microsoft. I'm the startup evangelist at Microsoft, and a lot of my focus is helping startups build and deploy solutions on Microsoft Cloud Azure, whether that is your bread and butter virtual machines and web apps, or cognitive services, machine learning. Personally, kind of working a lot with bots these days, so kind of bot framework and things like that, as well as any other emerging tech. In this role, I get to work with startups, not limited to any one vertical or industry or technology segment, so that's very exciting, whether they're sending rockets into space or doing retail tech or doing health tech or doing AR, VR, any of those things I get to kind of work with those startups. So my primary focus a lot of times is on Azure and around our offers and tech enablement. One of the things I usually tell any startup founder or VC or managing director at an accelerator, things like that, is if it was only the offers that we have in market and only the tech side, then likely there wouldn't be a reason to actually have myself here in Austin or my colleagues in New York, Chicago, or other places, because that could probably be done by a teleteam or a support organization or concierge, things like that. So the flip side of the tech enablement and the startup offers is, being able to sit down and have coffee, at a coffee shop, or meet with someone and mentor here at Capital Factory, and really get to know the startup at a much deeper level than you potentially would at just, hey, they're in our portfolio, they're on our stack, go. Once I understand the customer profile that you're selling to, your industry segment, their tech stack, then there other opportunities will arise, whether that's customer introductions or deeper integration, or access to preview technology, or access to engineering teams that are working on something that aligns with something you're working on, and that's all opportunistic and is dependent upon me kind of knowing what's going on, so I can kind of connect the pieces there. Very much kind of acting as that liaison, that conduit, as Paul said, into a very large monolithic organization, right? And why Austin? I've lived here for this will be my 17th year. Not born here, but got here as fast as I could, and but I think for Microsoft, why Austin? I mean, obviously, it is a game hub. I'm very excited about the AR, VR hub that Austin is making a name for itself there. There is a lot of activity around bots again, so Austin is kind of there, and you see a lot of investment from some of the larger companies as well. So it's not only obviously Microsoft, but Apple has a massive campus here. Amazon has a lot of engineers here. Google's growing. IBM and Dell and GM has an innovation center, and Intel has stuff here. And so, we need to be in the center of all that as well. We need to play in that ecosystem as well. So one of the things that again, this particular series, we bring up a lot of different corporate startup partners and things like that, and there are kind of some specific, there's some general things that all any of the kind of partners bring to the table. A lot of times that may be in-kind services, cloud hosting credits, that may be mentoring or technical architecture review sessions, potentially co-marketing or go-to-market, things like that. as well as potentially even office spaces. So, if you're traveling to another city, some of the startup programs, some of the corporations may have locations that you can actually office out of and things like that. But if we can you kind of elaborate on what specifically kind of Walmart brings to entrepreneurs that you're currently working with?
Yeah, so I think it kind of starts with, I think, what we're looking for. So we're looking to partner and invest in really earlier stage technologies and companies. And so obviously there's capital, right? There's
That's key.
yeah, that's key. There's exposure to through pilots, MVPs, and things of that nature. There's access to potentially our data sets, our customers, just the broader Walmart environment. I wouldn't go so far as to say that there are mentoring opportunities, but we are still kind of fleshing out like who we are going to bring in to be our mentors, and especially around retail. So we've got some great technology leaders, and we want to start to make them more available, especially to our startup partners here in Austin.
Do you have mentoring opportunities for obviously Walmart's warehousing or marketing or global footprint, things like that? Or
Yeah, so the different business units
Yeah.
and business capabilities. Yeah, so we've got a few, and what we've been kind of doing so far is each sort of relationship is it's a little more bespoke. It's not the network, the general network's not built out to where we can just say, you're a next generation last mile logistics provider, so we were going to put you together with this person. So we're kind of bridging those introductions, but just to be totally transparent, big monolithic organization, right? It takes time to establish those, and so it's something we do want to establish these programs in a way that it is a little more efficient and faster. Right now, it's a lot of putting the right people together and just bridging those intros, and honestly, that's not scalable, right? We're not going to be able to do that at any volume. So
sounds like you're trying to solve the same problems we're trying to solve internally. So
yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah.
Paul, you want to talk about Amazon specific?
Yeah, so the sort of AWS side, as far as like the hosting credits and things like that, there are credits available to most companies if you're part of some of the sort of higher tier Activate programs, which generally comes with you being part of some kind of accelerator or you raising institutional funding in some capacity. That is really kind of the only gate you have to jump to sort of qualify for thousands of dollars in credits to run your infrastructure. Like Ryan said, it's you can expect the same from any provider providing hosting provider out there. Now the other thing that you get are access to guys like myself. We do well architected reviews, kind of deep. I can look at your infrastructure and show you ways to save money or show you ways that you might be insecure, that sort of thing. That's sort of the high level AWS detail. We also have lofts in New York and San Francisco, so if you're ever there, you can go to those places, free internet, free Wi-Fi, free food, all that stuff. And there's a guy like me sitting in the corner that you can go ask questions about. Now, we also do in-kind, we also do marketing and co-marketing with customers. If you have a product that, like say a software as a service product that you're building, or you have some, application that customers might want to deploy in their own AWS environments, we have the AWS Marketplace, which makes it very easy for you to sell your, SaaS products or your technology products to other AWS customers, and we can often help with the sort of co-marketing efforts around there. If anybody's doing sort of professional services around AWS, there's also big partnerships programs that are available for you guys. To focus away from just the AWS portion and talk more broadly about Amazon.com, we have AWS Launchpad, which is probably the most relevant piece for the retail segment. This is generally looking for startups who are making a real thing, that are usually less than 9 months away from being able to make a significant order of that thing. And Amazon, in some cases, will actually buy the first 1,000, you name it, number of units to kind of give you that sort of initial sort of quantity that you need to kind of achieve that scale. So, come find me if you guys have a thing that you're thinking about and you're in that 9-month time frame away from it being available. Love to connect you with Launchpad. If anybody's thinking about using Alexa, is anybody thinking about using Alexa today in any capacity in their own application? So there's an Alexa fund as well that can often make actual capital available to you, not as well as AWS credits, depending on the nature of your product and what you're doing with it. There's some approval that have to go in place, but those are a few that just kind of jump off the top of my head, and always happy to connect you with any of them.
Yep, and similarly, on the Microsoft side, there's obviously a ton of Azure credit for qualified startups. Very much like Paul said, the qualified startups usually come through partners. For me here in Austin, that's usually like a Capital Factory or a Techstars, something like that. But also they'll come through kind of qualified investors that I work with here in town as well. So if you're not coming through a Capital Factory, Techstars, I'm still happy to have those conversations. But when it comes to scale, I can't just meet with every single person. So usually we rely on kind of partner vetting for a lot of that sort of stuff. One thing, going beyond kind of the general program components, Paul kind of touched on this a little bit, but one thing we do as well, or at least I do, is I look at the way I work with startups as a relationship. In fact, some of the people in the room that I've worked with, I've probably worked with you over years, and very much, while I may come in and help with some specific technology thing or come in and help with something specific, I'm also likely bringing in other teams that may be more tactical, and they're going to specifically, let's say you're going to do a go-to-market or a joint marketing agreement or something like that. I'm not going to necessarily do that. That'll be another team I kind of bring in. There'll be some thing that you and Microsoft do together. Once that thing is done, it's wrapped up in a nice package, bows put on it, all parties are happy, hopefully, and then that other team goes off to do their next thing, right? I'm still here and I'm still kind of maintaining that relationship, and then maybe a few months later I'm like, hey, there's this other thing that I think may benefit your company, and if you're interested, so we kind of bring in different teams like that. Another thing I mentioned was things like our the kind of opportunities that we can present to you. Curiously, since this is retail, why aren't any of you at NRF this week?
This is $1 million.
Yeah. Well. So, we.
Is that next week?
Huh?
NRF is next week.
Oh, it's next week. Okay. Okay. Good. So some
we will
of
be
you,
there.
some of you are going. Okay, there you go. So one of the things we do as well, and this is dependent upon the team and dependent upon the conference and things like that. But as part of kind of working with startups and things like that, oftentimes, company like Microsoft or Walmart or Amazon will have booths at these conferences. And I know at Microsoft we'll oftentimes have a customer or a startup that will have at that booth with us. Same.
Yeah.
With you, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, with any sort of marketing or evangelism, it's great to kind of tell your story through customers and through clients, through startups you're working with, investing in, and things like that. And so it's nice on your side for the entrepreneurs and founders to be able to ride those coattails and get into a booth that you wouldn't otherwise potentially be able to afford.
By the way, Microsoft, for those of you interested, does have on their retail Microsoft section, they do have discount coupons for those who want to go to NRF.
I didn't know that.
Go to the expo for.
There we go.
I don't know about Walmart or Amazon if you offer.
What is so?
I'm not sure.
That's actually new to me. What is so? We.
Yeah, I'll show it to you. It's a coupon code. You put it in your registration,
Oh.
and you can get a less expensive expo floor.
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. So yeah, if any of you are in New York next week and want to take advantage of that, go for it. In addition to something like NRF, one of the things I also like to do, when we have things like NRF, we'll oftentimes also try to bring together customer days. So we'll have a showcase or a customer day. And in fact, with NRF, we're doing our second one this year, where we're bringing some of the retail tech customers and some of our kind of enterprise customers as well, the decision makers there, whether it's the IT, marketing, CMO, whomever that decision maker is there. And usually, me being here in Austin, I try to advocate and get, Austin startups that I work with into those sort of events. So I'm always, kind of advocating for the startups that are in my personal purview to actually get into these events and showcase. And we're doing one next week with NRF, and I think Walmart's actually one of the clients that'll actually be there, one of the larger companies that will have interacting with startups. So let me, this one's usually tricky. So we talked about some of the general programs. I was at a meetup last night, and I mentioned some things to this startup bot, or startup founder around a bot company, and he's like, "That sounds great. Can you just send me information on that?" As if I could just send him a one pager on all the things that potentially Microsoft does. I'm like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. The way I can't, like, literally it would be a book. I need to know what specifically is attractive to you, or what would actually fit you. So it's that leads to how to actually engage. Like, how do you actually follow up with any of this? Me personally, I recommend following us on Twitter. If you're want to engage with us on social media, oftentimes we're sharing events we'll be at. We're sharing promotional things or company news. That also allows us to then retweet interesting stuff on your site. So if you're hiring, or if you have some sort of PR or some sort of tech that's coming out, we can broadcast that. Come to our office hours. I think all three of us host office hours out of Capital Factory and other places. Speaking of Capital Factory, you can always ask Capital Factory for an intro to any of us, and they can connect you directly. And then I put email with a question mark because I'm sure you're all inundated with inbounds, and it just...
I don't mind it. You can email me. You can come get a card afterwards if you're really curious.
Yeah.
It's easy enough for me to forward you guys. And I think that, to Ryan's point, yes, it's hard to just connect you with everything at Amazon quickly, but if you want to be connected with a business unit, just send me a forwardable email, and it's easy enough for me to connect you with the right person.
Yeah.
So personally, I don't mind it.
Yeah, I will take emails. Yeah, obviously I will take them. It's not like we just reject them. But I think the SLA on an email sometimes is a little longer than I want personally. It takes me sometimes days or sometimes longer to respond, as I'm trying to triage other things that are currently on fire with technical things or things like that. But, are there any other ways that it's best to engage, Jason?
Well, it's sort of covered in social, but LinkedIn is,
Yeah.
I use LinkedIn pretty extensively. I like LinkedIn because it gives you, if you send me a note, there's information about you, contextual information, so it's like, oh yeah, it just helps me get a little more background too. Sometimes just an email, it's, maybe we met at one point in one of these meetups, and I like that, LinkedIn's got a picture, and
Yep.
that's handy. And if you're at the Capital Factory, if you have access, pingboard, swing by. I'm totally cool with drop-bys. I sit over a Capital Triangle, have a desk over there.
Besides email, any other?
Yeah, the AWS subreddit is awesome. If you're on there and you've got questions, technical questions. Jeff Barr, our lead evangelist, is on there a surprising amount, and we'll answer questions directly, often directly from the service team. I know there are Twitter handles. I personally don't use Twitter, never have, and so I don't know what handles to recommend, but they're popular. Let's see. Ryan Merkett, really, as far as like people in Austin that work for Amazon that you should know, Ryan Merkett, he's ex-director of Reddit guy. You've already mentioned it before, but he and I are really kind of the two, at least AWS folks that you should know. So looking it up on LinkedIn, look me up on LinkedIn, and we'll help you sort of navigate Amazon at large.
Is Ryan hosting office hours at Capital Factory as well?
Yeah, Ryan and I will be tag teaming office hours at Capital Factory or Techstars or any other sort of large meetup event that we running office hours at. South by Southwest, we always do a big thing. And there's also, maybe worth mentioning, a big Amazon contingent that comes in for South by Southwest each year. There was like 20 Launchpad guys here at last South by Southwest. So, we're all over the place when we need to be.
Cool. Okay, so now we can open it up to the Ask Me Anything portion. So, questions?
A couple years ago, I got invited to a Walmart leadership conference. So I was one of 4 women, external women, that was invited in. It was phenomenal. It was fantastic. It really helped me see kind of the inside of Walmart. So I got to meet with Karen and
Karen Ann?
yeah, which was a really great experience. And I also got to give them feedback. So I've grown multiple billion-dollar businesses. I worked for Hewlett Packard, then I worked for Cisco, and now I'm a first-time entrepreneur. I've fixed hearing loss in 1,000 people. I've moved from Silicon Valley to there. I'll be honest, I don't have time for meetups. My primary focus is being with patients, and then figuring out how do I turn what I learned from being with patients into a product. I spend a lot of time with doctors who are very skeptical and who just want to give a Band-Aid, so they just want to sell a hearing aid as opposed to actually fixing hearing loss. I have met with the IoT guy from Amazon. So I guess my question to you is, number one, are they still doing those leadership conferences for Walmart? Because that was a fabulous use of my time. It was just a couple of days, concentrated.
Was it in Northwest Arkansas?
It was actually at walmart.com in San Bruno.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that was really great. And that's the kind of like intensive, just like 1-2 days, get me in so that when I get out, it helps me understand, okay, so this is what I need to think about. So for example, like we went to the leading store in terms of technology, and they were describing how they're doing consumer reports integrated with the product. So eventually when you go to scan a product, it'll also bring up the consumer reports thing. And so that was like, yay, great. So that told me, okay, in terms of development of the product, it's good for me to connect with consumer reports. So I guess,
Yeah. So I know that they did a Women in Technology not long ago. It was up in Northwest Arkansas, and so they are. There's a number of these. I can take that as an action and find out
That'd be great.
what's coming up specifically. I know that there are lots of things, and so I'll try to see if I can't find a way to aggregate those and share them out.
That'd be great. There was a smart device that had come out of Microsoft, and it was so funny, like communicating with the person. It was like we were both like trying to figure out a way. We were both running 1,000 miles an hour and trying to figure out, how can we do this more efficiently? And so it's kind of the same idea. If there's a particular event, that's just intensive,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
That'd be
and
great.
some of that stuff is now knowing that you're interested in that. Something that doesn't jump out at me. We oftentimes will have stuff around Grace Hopper and around other anchor events that we'll have we may have a leadership forum or summit there. But I'm not sure if we host I'm sure we do, but I'm not sure.
Okay, that'd be great. The other thing is sponsoring for conferences. Like I get asked to go to so many conferences, but if I were to go to every single conference and fork out $5,000 for every conference, to me that's one more person that I'm not helping to fix their hearing loss. And so if there's a way to support entrepreneurs in that journey, that'd be great. So like Norm Brodsky, for example, he's on the Inc. list. He writes every month, and his wife has a cochlear implant, hates it, and I'm working with her, and so I went to the Inc. 5000 conference, and he's like, are you coming tomorrow? I'm like, no, because Norm, that would have been another $3,000, and I'd rather be working with patients.
Yeah,
and so,
absolutely.
So he's like, come. I'm like, really? He's like, yes, just be here. So that support for entrepreneurs where it's valuable is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Was it a question or?
Well, no.
Because we do that. It's just depending on the conference. Like we'll usually have
The question is how to find out about, so you mentioned the free, and I get a lot of free stuff, but it's not to the general sessions, like the MDNA is next month in Anaheim and stuff. It's more like just, how can we get to the specific events that are going to help us bring
Right.
the product to market faster and help help us
So the way I would answer that
make a
question,
more successful product.
some of that stuff is, it's very dependent, so just having that ongoing relationship with folks like us, so that we know that you're interested in those conferences. So if CES was interesting, oftentimes we'll have a startup alley at CES. We may, have bought a giant booth as big as this room or something, and part of that will be startups. Or Collision is a startup conference where we did the same thing. We bought like sponsored a few different startup booths. The hard part of that question is, or the hard part of that is that the group that paid for CES, or the group that pays for Collision, or the group that pays for our sponsorship at NRF, those are all different business units. And it's not just, we don't always have that kind of writer that says, hey, let's have a space for the startups we work with. I personally would love it if we did, but we just don't. That's whenever those opportunities do come up, those requests come directly to my team to say, hey, what are the interesting innovative startups focused on health tech, retail tech, whatever, that may be going to this or may be interested in this, and we will offer up some suggestions.
Same goes for us, I'd say. Let us know what you're interested in.
Yeah.
We'll try to connect you.
Yeah, that's just, there's no, like Jay said, there's no way to scale that. There's no way to make that programmatic. It requires us kind of knowing, and unfortunately, that also oftentimes means that, which health tech startup do I recommend for the health tech conference? The last 2 or 3 I interacted with. It's kind of a last in, first out thing.
I was interested what your guys' perspective was on, I have a home services company here in the Accelerator. I'm just curious of what you guys think about that space. I know I've seen different verticals kind of popping up and being tested on a number of websites out there like Amazon. I'm curious how you guys think about that, how you pick those verticals, et cetera.
Our sort of BC business development team tracks those kinds of industry verticals and, over-invested in verticals and, and sort of do an analysis internally and, sort of talk about it and socialize that broadly within Amazon about what verticals and industries are, being over-invested in, what are sort of emerging, and we use that to sort of put together our sort of, top 250 startups that we should be focusing on, around, as well as a number of other sort of factors that we put together. But I'm not sure if that answers your question, but we are looking at exactly that.
That makes sense. And then with your guys' acquisition of Jet.com, I assume that you guys are starting to focus online, Walmart being one of the largest retailers out there, more inventory than anyone else. So I've seen you guys starting to do grocery delivery and some home services as well. How do you guys think about that? Say it similarly, or?
In terms of investment, or so.
Which verticals you guys choose? So like,
Yeah.
for example, it'll be like, lawn care and whatever. And then
Right.
these other verticals that are out there that seem really.
Yeah, I would
obvious.
say that service-based verticals that have a slant towards like the small business owner, so like our Sam's Club warehouse stores, a really key customer there is the small business owner. And so services that we could potentially provide as a value add through a Sam's Club membership, something to distinguish them from, say, a Costco membership, I think those would be interesting to us. Pure, like home, like I know what your company is. We've talked about that. That'd be a little trickier. And then we're investing, a lot of our investment too, I should have maybe said this earlier, my team is not so much focused on goods for resale and consumer products. It is more around retail innovation in and of itself. So, but I think if you've got a service that you feel like satisfies a small business customer, those are things that we would start to say that's kind of interesting. How could we do a partnership? How should we be investing in this space and offering it to our members?
Does Walmart have a thing where if I send you customers like an affiliate program where I get a small, I think Amazon has that where if I can get a little affiliate thing and then, do you have a similar thing like that?
Yeah, there's an affiliate program. Yep.
What sort of percentage do you know? I'm not sure what Amazon offers to you. either, I don't know, it's like 2% or?
I think it's, I was talking to a company today, I heard the number 4%.
Four?
I honestly don't know, though, I would have to, that's another one, I'd have to take a homework action.
Is that hard to get into that?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think, so I was at CES recently, and last week, I guess, and there was a big push. So we had a Walmart Jet booth there around trying to use the marketplaces and drive other, so whether it's through affiliate or maybe it's a Chinese drone maker that's coming in that doesn't have a distribution channel in the US. So there's I don't know the process, but I can find out for you. If you can connect with me or give me your information after.
Okay.
Can you clarify what you mean by retail innovations? You said that's what you're looking for, kind of.
Yeah, so technologies that we would likely employ or use in the future in our actual business and retail operations. So not just brick and mortar, right? It could be, it's certainly not brick and mortar only. It could be e-commerce, it could be logistics, it could be, the future of last mile. I mean, the drone thing is just that's an example of the type of thing. But what are technologies that we should be looking at investing in now, thinking more like 5+ years down the road? Did that answer your question?
I can kind of follow up on that as well. I can give you some specific concrete examples. I'm working with a startup that has an IoT device connected, to retail shelving, so in the actual stores. That is then, we're using that data for visualizations, and then hopefully the next leg is for predictive analysis. There are startups around, there are startups that are doing cognitive services, sort of emotional detection APIs and things like that, for dealer showroom and stuff like that. There are startups that are doing, obviously, churn prediction around, especially online consumers. There are, any of those kind of retail startups,
Like,
or
some technology that would tell you what's in your fridge and
yeah,
put
well,
your order through
yeah.
Walmart, that kind of
and
thing.
you also look at, okay, for retailers, can you either increase the top line, or can you reduce costs in some way? Can you, if you, like with all the subscription services coming out, how do you reduce returns, right? With the model of, if I'm moving to online shopping, if every customer then buys 3 of something, expecting to return 2 of them because they bought one size here, one size here, one size here, and they're just gonna pick one of those, and then they're gonna return it because they get free shipping and they get free returns.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great service to bring those customers in, right? That's a lot of overhead that someone like Walmart probably doesn't want to pay out in terms of shipping costs, right? So then an innovation would come in. It's like, okay, what innovative services can you reduce can you increase the confidence of consumers in their ability to purchase that product? So there's another startup that is here in Austin that focuses on something similar to that around sizing. Lots of hands all of a sudden went up. Sorry, I think you were speaking. Go ahead.
So if Walmart was to find an innovation, how would they go about rolling that out into the stores? Is there like experimental Walmarts where they try stuff out and then do stuff?
That's a good question.
Yeah, it would be a phased approach for sure. And so we would, it kind of depends on, like, so if it has, say it's an innovation and it requires integration to your point of sale system, right? That's going to be treated like very differently, than something that's like endless shelf, technology, or like, a smart shelf or something like that. It has the blast radius if something goes wrong is a lot smaller, right? So, but for instance, we came across something here in Austin and we wanted to go experiment with it. I've sort of got relationships with some of the store managers that are kind of our pilot stores that are willing to kind of accept the risk and bring technology in. So it could go that route. We also are, Austin's the first city outside of Bentonville we're really trying to start this kind of innovation and community kind of ecosystem outreach program with the startups. But we've got, we're gonna be bringing on some other cities, and then in Bentonville itself. So say it was a point of sale technology that required deep integration. We're gonna have a Capital Factory-esque building and location there that's not even Walmart branded, but it's where we would sponsor startups and new technologies to come in, put them together with the right people from Walmart technology. Yeah, and so, and the idea is to just knock this stuff out, right? To move fast, to get away from some of the corporate bureaucracy, and kind of, we're gonna carve people out internally and put them together with the startups. So it could be any number of things, right?
Yeah, my question actually is for Paul. So it's a retail conversation, and Amazon's mastered the frictionless, one-point purchase, one-button push, and you have population-dense areas like Austin that are ideal for testing grounds for like Prime Now, for example. And I'm curious, with the innovations that are happening in drone technology, do you see an expansion for Amazon of having more warehouses that are in not as population-dense areas, and then using that last mile reach that you can get aerial? Or is that something that Amazon is exploring, or are they going to continue to push traditional shipping to areas that aren't population dense, and then just try to make sure they can capture as much commerce locally?
It's an interesting question. I've heard internally thrown around the idea that Amazon has goals of having a distribution center within 200 and some miles of 95% of the United States population. That's a pie in the sky goal. It's actually very similar to our philosophy on our content distribution systems from a technical AWS perspective. So, I see us pushing that way, but what always surprises me are when I see stuff like Amazon buys 10 jets, and Amazon gets official, the appropriate licensing to bring container ships in and out of China and things like that. So I think it's a very, very big plan, thinking big, almost at a planetary scale, but then these distribution centers and then, local Amazon delivery trucks and Prime Now are gonna keep that local, that hyper-local focus as well. There's a lot of Prime Now developers here in Austin, actually, and so it's fun to kind of bump into them in the hallway and let them know when the app doesn't exactly work. Yeah, that's our office up there in the domain, yeah.
Yeah, along that same line, kind of a macro level, we're at the very cusp of all this with Instacart and Amazon Prime, and the general population doesn't know how to use it quite yet. It's kind of a new thing. How do you guys see, like, in the next 10 or 15 years, obviously big box retail is kind of starting to already capitulate towards closing. How do you guys see, especially Walmart, in the long run, do you still see having these monster retail destinations as this gets more and more convenient out into the market, and more everyday Joe person is using Instacart to get their groceries delivered to their house? How do you else, what's the time frame? How do you, what does Walmart see?
Yeah, I don't know that I can speak to the time frame, but certainly we acknowledge that, online e-commerce is a way of, and this is publicly available, the information, where we shifted money away from building stores in the last year towards e-commerce. And so, the acquisition of Jet and now ShoeBuy, and so we recognize that. I would say, I think on the flip side, there's announcements of now Amazon is looking at fresh stores, right, where they used to be really just everything is online. So there's going to be a middle ground there, but is it the 180,000 square foot super center? Probably not. I know that our grocery formats called neighborhood markets really aren't any around here. Dallas got a bunch of them, but the comps for those types of formats are really, really good. And so, groceries and fresh, versus general merchandise, I think the strategies are different there. But certainly, online, Instacart, we're looking at all of that type of, method of selling to customers. I will say, it is when you're in retail, the margins are really thin, right? And so when you start offering like 2-hour delivery, like a Prime Now, any margin you had is eroded, right? So there's got to be at least for us, we've got to really look at like what markets does it make sense to do that in, and where does it not? And in Austin proper, people are not. If you live down here, you're not getting in your car and driving down to the store Ben White, most likely, right? Like, this is a market that will have a different approach than up in maybe Round Rock, Cedar Park, that kind of thing.
I'll just throw in one thought around that. And it kind of just points to the way that Amazon thinks big and iterates on its ideas, right? The way AWS started, internally Amazon needed a bunch of servers, and then so we said, well, maybe we can just sort of operationalize how we're doing it and sell it commercially for people, and then that sort of took off and cloud computing became a big deal. I think that same notion of, hey, we're already doing this thing internally and we're doing this very well, how can we operationalize and make that available to enterprises that broadly, that's a very exciting idea, and Amazon likes to work that way. And I think when you look at Amazon Go and like the cash registerless store where you're just walking in and grabbing stuff and walking out, yeah, that's a grocery store, and yeah, that's great, but the real value is all of the technology that we're putting into that retail experience is probably going to get licensed out to retail companies at large. And so, I think Amazon definitely believes there is a future for local in-person brick and mortar retail, Amazon Go being a huge example of that investment.
I'm sorry. So my name's Dennis Menendez. I'm a mentor here at the Cattle Factory as well as other startup incubators. But that's what I wanted to ask you, and particularly Jason. I understand why my expertise is building routes to market. So what I'm interested in knowing is I know how to partner with Microsoft because I'm going to, whatever IP our companies develop, we're going to bring Microsoft with that, right? And I know with Amazon, and this is the first time I heard about licensing, I'm not sure if you're meaning the services or you're saying you have IP that we could, as a startup, license and then incorporate OEM it or
on photographs. AWS makes that possible, right?
Yeah.
We've got that today. And AWS, and sort of when I look at the way that we operate in that example and what I see going on with Go, I am very much anticipating that in the future those technologies will be
Oh,
made.
so it's a future thing, but
Oh, yeah,
there is
absolutely.
opportunity
Brand
with
new.
some
Yeah.
co-development and joint IP on that.
Most likely.
Now with Walmart, which is what I'm really interested, not to put you down, because I also represent companies out of Asia that have put me on retainer to come and learn about things. And do you license your technology for resale on other enterprises, either white label or under a Walmart technology brand?
I would say, so I am familiar with things we have done with technology partners like Zebra and Motorola, right, in the retail. And so RFID is a good example. We spent a lot of money and time developing RFID-based technologies that could operate at large scale, like in one of our stores. And I think every one of those deals is a little bit different. We don't have this is the program and how we do it. I know that if you are at NRF, you go by the Zebra booth, you'll see, for instance, the jointly developed sensoring platform that they've got around RFID. And the specifics of how we did that, I think we jointly created.
Add any sort of building to where you can speak to it, and it does natural language processing and chats back to the user or gives instruction. We have programs in place that can help, sort of encourage you to develop that integration into your platform. And that comes in usually the fund of either partner dollars, or will help pay maybe for somebody to come help you integrate that into your technology, or if it's a big enough idea, they'll maybe potentially offer you capital as well. It's actually one of the few funds available at Amazon where they actually provide direct capital, and so outside of standard corp dev type of environment. So it's a really interesting program. It's got a very high bar to entry, but if you're interested in qualifying, I'm happy to sort of make that connection.
So this would be Alexa on other IoT devices, or would it also include skills under Echo Skills or Alexa Skills?
So yeah, the if you want to make a skill for the Echo itself, you can develop or an Alexa skill. My favorite one is the Jeopardy skill. You know, in the morning you can ask and play 6 questions of Jeopardy. You know, that's one option. The Alexa Fund though is more specific to integrating it to an existing product.
I would like to understand where you guys see the direction of retail going, and I want to explain a story. So to respond to your thing about Instacart, I had a very interesting experience. So I moved from Atherton, most expensive zip code in the nation, to Austin, and I did it because there was software programmers sleeping in their cars that worked for Google, and as starting and growing company, I didn't want my employees sleeping in their cars. So when I moved to Austin, was driving down, very first housing district I saw that I liked, was like, okay, I'd buy that house, pay cash, whatever, move in. So I went to an investor summit, and I was meeting with potential investors. Met a person that seemed like a really great guy. He was an orthopedic surgeon, worked for the Navy, which is great because that's his biggest customer base for me. Well, needless to say, he tried to steal $70,000 from me. So I reported him to the sheriff, reported him to the Navy CIS, and he sent me a delivery from Instacart. And so I actually went to Instacart and I said, I need to know this person to provide the information to the sheriff, and they couldn't. So it was very interesting because I actually did a complete reversal where originally I was having everything just delivered to my house, and I was having my business in my home as opposed to a capital factory because I'm dealing with patients, and so it gives me a lot more privacy as opposed to being in a capital factory environment. So going to investor meetings, so needless to say, I've kind of taken a really different analysis and gone back to retail. So yes. So I asked the question because I think that Apple has already publicly announced they are going to be changing their stores. So I'd love to hear from all three of you in terms of what your retail's going to look like. And I also say that knowing, for example, that my buddies from Cisco have described to me some of the innovation that's happening at Walmart, which is pretty phenomenal. And I just see a real benefit for the mass population in terms of privacy, because everything we order online, yes, some of that information is great because then you get the information that's most applicable, but the other time is it also makes it very vulnerable. And so especially with someone that's dealing with, like hearing, which can be a very sensitive issue.
Yours is interesting because it brings up HIPAA and delivery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it affects 1 in 3 people, and it's a $28 billion market.
Specifically on the privacy thing, so just another little anecdote. So my wife, in her car GPS, she programmed home as like 2 addresses down. I asked her, I was like, why'd you do that? She's like, I don't know, I just didn't want the system knowing where we live. And I'm like, it's a lot easier to get your address. Like, no one has to hack the GPS system to get your address. That's publicly available information via voter registration records and things like that. So,
It's actually an outlier because your GPS is going to ping where you're at, so it knows that you're going to park for a longer period of time in a house 2 doors down. So real intelligence people are intelligent enough, right, to say like, all right, this fucker's trying to fuck with us. You see it?
Yeah, so I was like, there's hacking into this company's GPS system is not the way that your private information is going to be leaked. I guarantee it. So, in your question was kind of more about the broader retail strategy. So, what do we see future-wise? And I think that also ties into his question around where the trend is with brick and mortars and things like that. I don't think any of that goes away, but more and more customers are becoming very comfortable with service-based delivery businesses and personal shoppers, intelligent agents, things like that will shop for them. But I think there will also always have to be an experience that you can provide for retailers. So not a lot of people you may or may not know, but Microsoft does have retail stores. Everyone may not know that, but we do have retail stores. if you walk into them. They're usually near the Apple Store. That's good. if you're in the Apple Store and you're like, man, I am claustrophobic, just go over to the Microsoft Store. You should be good. But no, we do that for a number of reasons. One, like we need a space to showcase the hardware in a way that we control, right? So not to knock on some of our partners, but sometimes when you go to like a Best Buy or things like that, that you go to their computer section and none of your stuff is presented in its best light, right? It has the giant security bar over it. It has, we're selling touchscreen laptops, but yet they have a plastic screen in front of it that you can't touch it. And it's like, that's not how we need to be presenting our products, right? So, part of a retail store, it's not to be everywhere so that every single customer can be there, but you have to have those anchor events that says, this is how it should be done. This is how we should be presenting our stuff. And then, cajole and, get your partners to kind of come on board to have those experiences that they're selling their other products. That's speaking specifically from kind of a, as a retailer that sells stuff.
Well, the Genius Bar at Microsoft is fabulous, so, I've taken in multiple computers to them and just said, please help me, so they've been, really fantastic.
I'm teasing.
I think it's ridiculous. No, so what happened, what you described happened to me. I went to the Apple Store at the Domain, and then I walked over to the Microsoft Store, and the experience was so positive, I walked out with a Surface Pro 4.
Hey, there we go.
And they have great education and service.
Yeah, so there's been like undertone comments made by each of you that's like one consistent technology. So when we talked about the fresh stores that Amazon is doing, it's frictionless, so you're not even going through a checkout. So there are actions that happen right whenever you pick up the product, right? There's what's gone on with RFIDs and beacons inside of the Walmart stores, and then Microsoft, your HoloLens, you'll have a new little toy that came out to help you identify where your keys are at through an RFID chip. And y'all announced like a new generation of RFID probably 3.5 months ago. So I'm just curious as to, can y'all kind of outline to us a little bit more how y'all see this, what was an old technology that's been given this facelift, is all of a sudden kind of playing more into the way that you're looking at retail?
I can quickly just say about the Amazon Go. It's not just RFID. It's a variety of technologies, and it's that suite of technologies together that make it possible for that frictionless experience. And that's what I think it's more about is how frictionless can we make it. That's why you see like the dot, right? Or not the dot, but the push, the Amazon push, where you hit a button and you get your new toilet paper, and just talking to Alexa and ordering a toilet paper from her there. The Firefly effect on the Amazon barcode scanner on the app, which is awesome. It's just, I know we're just interested in trying to get as frictionless as possible. RFID is just one of many things that it's going to take.
Speaking on behalf on the Microsoft side, so almost everything that we usually look at things as a platform play. So with like HoloLens, it's not meant to be the be-all end-all mixed reality device. Like we very much have other partners that will be building devices. The Windows holographic. We're not the only manufacturer of those devices. Similarly, when it comes to data, visualizations or IoT, we're very much interested in the platform and the data side of it. So on the RFID side, again, it's really data and platform, and how do we make it as easy as possible for developers and for startups to deploy whatever their RFID solutions are, or low energy Bluetooth, or whatever thing comes out next year, in terms of radio technologies. How do we make it easier for them to deploy and manage that data and make interesting use of that data on our platforms?
And my answer would echo probably Paul. It's RFID is just a component, a piece of the larger censoring challenge in providing that Amazon Go experience. I mean, you guys have a little more insight than most people in the room around what our aspirations there are, but yeah, it's that we would love to use RFID and a bunch of other technologies to alleviate the need to stand in the line at the front of the Walmart. Right? That's probably, that and the parking lot are probably the two most unpleasant experiences. So if we can eliminate
saw a hand in the back real quick.
Yeah, just let everyone go. You touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to hear some of the examples you have, if you have any, for the partnerships that can come there, because I know you're talking about
Yeah.
frictionless technology, but I know you guys have been developing that technology the last 4 years, so.
It's, you know, I probably should have clearly stated that what we're doing in Amazon Go now is very much in that sort of with one store today, right? It's still very much POC, proof of concept. But I see how Amazon, basing this just on the way I've seen other business units at Amazon scale and grow. And so right now, are there examples of, you know, Amazon Go technology being used externally? No, I would be very surprised if that was actually happening. But I'm supposing that that is going to come over time. It's what we did with Amazon, AWS, and I know that there's other business units that are about to make some announcements in a similar vein. So it's neat to see that happen.
Right, so it's more about licensing out the open source technology, which is something that Amazon has a track record of doing.
Exactly. We're going to look to try to make what we do well internally. We're going to try to make available to other companies to make use of.
No, yeah, I've heard that's good, you guys do.
Yeah.
Question?
Yeah, my question's for you, Jason. I think Walmart's probably uniquely positioned out of the three companies in front of us here because you offer healthcare services that Amazon and Microsoft don't. You have the Walmart Care Service. I was wondering what your appetite and Walmart as a whole appetite are for partnering with companies that work with healthcare delivery, and especially in the wake of the Theranos flame out over the last 18 months.
Yeah.
What's your appetite for working with healthcare health tech startups?
So so our health and wellness business is what that's called. So our pharmacies and all that, optimal centers. I'm definitely interested in talking to people. I've got a few. I've brought a few of those back to the health and wellness business. I think it just depends on what the particular startup is or technology. But certainly we have a whole health and wellness innovation team that we can funnel those things into, and so and it also depends on the stage that the company is at.
Right.
But,
Are you looking for simple partnerships or looking to make investments for development as well?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say all of the above. So we're the startups that we're going to have the most success with are those that we can bring in and actually do a partnership with, right? And so a lot of times, I think when you look at like what a corporate VC does versus like a financial VC, we're always looking sort of at more of a strategic play and not just financial returns. So
Yep.
if it's something we can leverage and use in our business and there's value there, then it makes a lot of sense for us to invest in the company as well. And so you'll have a strategic partnership and then also just sort of a pure, like a financial as well.
I think, you know, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that we're looking for is how to get from a construction zone into the express lane. So I knew Elizabeth Holmes, and a lot of my friends were on her board, and then they resigned from her board because they knew the quality problems that she was going out with. And so one of the key people that I was collaborating with, he was the inventor of the cochlear implants. And so, you know, what we're looking for from a company like Walmart or Amazon or Microsoft is, you know, that IP protection. So, you know, Tim Cook and Mike Riley wanted me to go work for them. And I said, no. I said, because I know you've got 3 different divisions, and I know you guys aren't collaborating. So I want to go work in an environment where I feel like I can bring the value to the customer, and it's also going to be a good experience. So the IP protection, and then, like I said, going from a construction zone into that express lane, you know, in terms of patents, in terms of quality boards, and
Yeah. So I think our group, we are trying to establish a new way of working with especially startups and entrepreneurs, and we really want to be mindful. A couple of things, and this is a great, I think, point to touch on. So I think traditionally, if you were a small company attempting to work with Walmart, it could have been a very, very bad experience, right? A small company will see the opportunity to do business with Walmart as, man, if we can land this, it's going to be game changing, right? It can be, but what we don't want to see happen is small companies and entrepreneurs spend so much time and energy on something that they end up, if it doesn't work out, I mean, that was their their final shot, right? Like they just burned out. So we want to be really mindful of that. We don't want to ask anybody to come and work for us or partner with us that's not being compensated fairly. So now I'll say, with Microsoft, we'll ask them to do stuff for free all the time, right? They can afford it. But the startup community, we do not want to do that. We aren't going to be looking for things like exclusivity necessarily. We want this to be good for Walmart, good for the company, good for the entrepreneur. I've heard kind of that same spiel multiple times, and so we're trying to get to, in probably the next quarter, we're going to be kind of launching a partnership application site where you can go and you can kind of see what are we looking for, and a way to submit some just basic information. And we want to get a quick, hey, thanks for applying, we're not interested in this technology right now, or hey, this is interesting, let's keep talking. But we want to do that fast, right? Get the fast no out there, or the fast, yeah, we're interested kind of thing. And so really trying to have a founder, entrepreneur first kind of approach to this.
Real quick funny story since you brought up health and wellness. In a previous life before Microsoft, health.walmart.com was actually a website that my team was developing.
Really?
With a consulting firm, yeah. That developed out of that building right over there. But yeah, it was all the content and all that good stuff. It was fun times. I think we were the only external team that had like our own subdomain at Walmart. IT hated us. So any other questions?
I mean, do y'all have any specific examples of maybe a startup that you worked with or partnered with or invested with that you can talk about it all, maybe, and how that came to fruition?
I've got one. There was a company out of, I think, Allspark in Houston, like the Rice Accelerator, and they made a earwax thing. You stuck it in and turn around, but I mean, it went through the appropriate ENT certifications or what have you. We got them plugged into the Launchpad program. Amazon bought the first 10,000 units of it, and they went from they had their first major significant order basically just taken off their shoulders for them. So they got a lot of co-branding on the Launchpad site for this ear cleaner. At the time, I was like, wow, this thing, when I first saw it, I was like, all right, this is wild. But we got, it was exactly what we were looking for. And, it was 2, 3, 4 emails, and all of a sudden they were, we were moving forward with it. So it can move quickly. If you meet all the criteria for the Alexa Fund or for Launchpad, it's engineered to move quick.
Yeah, I've got a lot of examples depending on what the right story is. So when you're looking at, Microsoft runs first-party accelerators, and I've had an Austin startup in each one of those accelerators. The very first Microsoft accelerator in Seattle, there was a company, former Techstars called, at the time they were called Ume? They rebranded this in the accelerators, but to Plum. But they had a Wi-Fi connected light switch essentially with a touch panel. We worked with them through that accelerator on the tech side, but more importantly on manufacturing. So they did a field trip out to Shenzhen and went and visited factories there and met with the kind of global manufacturing arm of the Chinese distribution. On the data side, on the platform side, there's a retail company that I mentioned, the IoT and data. There's a company called PowerShelf, not based here in Austin, but they have stuff on various shelves with companies with large enterprise health grocery stores that may be here in Austin. There's a Techstars company called Fashion Metric, just rebranded to Bold Metrics. Been working with them kind of off and on around their stuff and around machine learning and platforming. And then lastly, there's another Techstars company. I didn't have anything to do specifically with this one except on some tech side, but they came out of Techstars New York called Little Bits, and they sold sell these STEM kind of education little components that you can create connected circuitry and turn on and off this LED. There's one for weather. There's one for connects to cloud. I helped connect the cloud to some stuff within Azure, but we worked with them to land shelf space within our flagship store in Times Square and in Sydney, Australia, with the plan to then roll it out to an initial 63 stores, like this year or so. So, again, just depending on what any one of those scenarios are, there's probably there's something that we can potentially help with, but not always. So if you're doing consumer packaged goods and there's not a lot I can help with there, right, from Microsoft's side. Notice that each one of those stories I mentioned had a technology and data component to it. If it doesn't, obviously you're probably running your website, you probably have some sort of technology behind it, but if your primary business is consumer packaged goods and it's not technology, there's not a lot I can do to accelerate. I'm happy to help reduce infrastructure costs, but I can't help accelerate in any of the ways I just mentioned.
Yeah, we've currently got, so I would say in our current program, we've got a few IoT technologies, and companies that we're working with, but we're still in kind of pilot stage with them. Prior to this group, I think what you mostly would see would have been a lot of M&A type activity. Our labs team has made several kind of big technology plays and platforms and DevOps type technology companies and that kind of thing. Or like 1-800-Contacts is a great example of a startup that we started working with. I mean, that's kind of an old story, but
yeah.
That's a really wild one. It took 1-800-Contacts. They partnered with our optical division to sell contacts to people and turned into a huge business. And I think ultimately they just sold last year for like $1.2 billion. But
So y'all didn't.
we had the opportunity to, but somebody. It was one of those things. So this is a good. I think this is a perfect sort of lesson around a big corporation. When the option came to acquire 1-800-Contacts, it was at like 10 times EBITDA, and so it would have been like $650 million. The problem was nobody said no, but nobody said yes, and so it expired. And the night it expired, it got purchased for like $850 million, and then again it just resold for almost double what we could have purchased it for. So those are the kinds of things you scratch your head. You're just like, what are we doing? But I hate to say, $1 billion is a lot of money. $650 million is a lot of money. But you will get into these when you're dealing with really large corporations. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Every problem you're trying to solve or deal with is $100 million plus problem, right? So you get like numb to like large sums of money in the whole. And so it's we've got so many people and resources, and it's like, well, if I do this, the return is $200 million. Well, if I do this, it's $1 billion, right? So it's amazing how things like that get lost in the shuffle. And
Mars just purchased a series of veterinary clinics for $9.1 billion.
Who did?
Mars, the candy store,
Oh, really?
the candy company,
Wow.
Yeah, so they're doing back end. They're saying, hey, we gotta figure out how to grow our business. So they purchased a whole series of veterinary clinics.
Wow, that's a lot of money for
Yeah, exactly.
I think we probably have time for one additional question, and then anyone. Yep.
Do you have any advice for those of us trying to get our products in your stores, or getting in touch with buyers? And Jason, do you guys have anything like Launchpad set up, or in the works?
No, I don't know that we have a program that's set up like Launchpad. So what we would do is, and I think Marlo and I talked to you a little about this, is we would bridge a connection to our buyer community for like smart home for people, for instance. That's kind of the best we've got right now. It's something that's another one that we've really said is something we want to work on this year, because there's constantly, we're seeing like really cool consumer packaged or consumer goods that it feels like it's a shame that we have, being here in Austin, I get to see cool products like yours, and we don't have a really good way to get that into the stores. So right now, unfortunately, it's bridging introductions to the buyers.
All right. Well, thank you for coming to this first event of 2017, and look forward to seeing you at the next one if you're interested.
Thanks for your time.
I just wanted to say hi.
Hey.
I understand. Most of Microsoft uses our
Okay.
network.
Okay, so are you looking?
Yes.
Are you looking to do something separate? Or?
No. So now I run a team. I built most of it. I mean, I think there's pretty much all your data centers.
Really? Okay. So are you going to the South Central a lot? Are you still in that business now? Or?
No, I'm still it's very exciting.
They've got, waiting for Jason. Oh, go ahead, because we're waiting for Jason.
Do you have a contact card?
Oh, LinkedIn. Chandra Aparna? No, I don't have.
Well, if you just want to find me, just on LinkedIn, just connect, I'll accept it. Pleasure to meet you.
I used to be at Cisco.
Brian as well.
Hey.
Nice to meet you. I actually like your school.
Do I?
I actually like your school.
I was teasing, like, hopefully the dig wasn't too bad, but it is.
No. I'm a network engineer, DevOps, so I traded. I recently got one, and I got
So pretty much everyone at Microsoft, like, we all have Macs as well. Like we're technologists. So,
but I'm like joy here. Like I'm all.
yeah, like I have my Mac at home. A lot of my development is my problems. Yeah, it's literally like next thing.
No, but now Microsoft allows Macs at work also. I think I've seen it. There used to, I mean,
A lot of my colleagues
in
have
'98, Microsoft tried to add me. I used to work at Cisco at that time.
So they were like, no.
No Macs. No Macs.
Yeah, well, it's a different world.
It's a different. I live in half the system, all the stuff I'm accessing up there is probably Amazon, Microsoft, saying it like it's a myriad of stuff there.
Yeah, but again, like you said, Microsoft is doing very well.
Yeah, I think they've done a
Windows
really
10 is
job.
awesome.
I mean, the pivot going back. I mean, you guys own the enterprise forever. You got now you get some disruption there.
I am.
Network just makes sense. Like just building out kind of that CRM suite.
Yeah, I think the LinkedIn purchase makes sense.